In this video, we're going to go over the most fundamental of fundamental mechanics, and that is the corkscrew. And we're going to go over a couple NHL examples here. I'll show you another one right here of the corkscrew in a game. And then we'll go over the drills you can execute to get repetition to skate like Matthews and Eichel. And so what the corkscrew is in a game is this is a really strange looking one. And it's a strange mechanic to think that you need to teach. But it's essentially planting your feet and not lifting your feet and sculling and cutting with your heels to move and being in a really wide stance. This is a totally unique mechanic to hockey. It's not something you see in a lot of other sports, none that I can think of actually. And this is something that the best of the best do. So as you can see here with Matthews, he has a nice wide stance. His weight is to his heels. His hand is inside the Crosby crevice. He's got a nice deep Y angle. And this is what he's using to actually maneuver. And it's often used to link up mechanics. So we'll see that with Eichel here, where he's using the corkscrew as kind of like a link between mechanics. So you can see Eichel in a very similar position here in a nice wide corkscrew. See all the same things that we're looking at. We're looking at shin angle. We're looking at Y angle on this right foot, hand in the crevice. And you can see that he uses the corkscrew as like the first step and a linking mechanic between his shots and his passes, because here's another corkscrew right here. So the corkscrew is a mechanic often seen by NHL players as a link between their movements. And here is the actual drill that you'll want to do. So it's a really simple drill. You're just going to keep both feet flat on the ground or on the ice, and you're going to cut on your inside edges. Really, really simple. So you're just going to keep, sculling with your feet. You're going to keep stick handling with your hands, and you're going to get as wide as you can. So that's just the drill as is. I'll show it to you again as I talk, and then we'll talk through some ways to progress. So again, a couple things we're looking for when we're doing this are the knee over the toe, the weight to the heel, and then, as you can see from this frame here, we want double shoulder width. So we've got single shoulder width. This would be roughly double. And let's look back at how some of these other guys do it. If we look at Eichel right here, just prior to his setup, you can see how wide he is and how he has all those same features. And same with Matthews, you can see his width and how he's planted wide like that. So that is the corkscrew, the drill. Now we're going to talk a little bit about a couple variations. And what you'll want to do is you'll want to start out with this. See if you can hit this drill by itself. And if not, you're going to want to regress down to these variations or these regressions. So the first regression we're going to talk about is width. Because remember, what you want is you want to be super wide, just like Matthews here, just like Eichel's here. You actually want double shoulder width. So imagine this being shoulder width, right? I know the angle is a little different, but just kind of imagine that shoulder width, that's roughly double shoulder width. So what you're going to do to start here to practice this progression to width is you can see here I have shoulder width feet. My feet are right under my shoulders. And you're going to practice just stick handling. Then your next step is to get shoulder width and a half. So again, shoulder width, and now we're sort of adding like an extra half shoulder width. The feet are getting a little bit wider. And you can practice just stick handling from there. Then your next step is to go double shoulder width. So as you can see here, there's my shoulder width, and now we've got roughly double shoulder width. A couple things you want to pay attention to is that we want to be so wide that our Y angle naturally is really great. So if you look here, what you're aiming to get is you're aiming to get your boot on the ground. And you want to have your feet so wide that your boot is almost touching the ground. So let's take a look here, and you can actually see that in a couple of instances, especially where Eichel gets super wide. You can kind of see that right here, where the boot is almost touching, and you can see that here with Matthews as he's going here, and you can see how wide he is with the toe cap of the skate almost touching. Now, one of the keys to that is that, and you can see it right here, that even though the toe cap is almost touching, the heel, the part of the heel boot is not. So that's why you want to have your weight to your heel with good shin angle, because that allows you to still grip the ice. So that's the first progression to the corkscrew. So once you have sorted that out, you want to practice your corkscrew from narrow, and as you can see, I start to get wider, and then work your way out to your double shoulder width. So you want to see if you can comfortably get wider and wider and wider while staying loose, while still being able to do this corkscrew. So at first, it'll feel uncomfortable to get wide, and you'll want to consistently push that width. The next progression is something we call the rocking horse. And what I'm showing here is that your blade has a rocker, okay? And that rocker actually allows you to roll and shift your weight from toe in this stance to heel in this stance. So you can see the weight is here on the toe and here on the heel. But I haven't actually lifted my feet up off the ice. They're just rockering back and forth. So the reason that we're doing this progression is because we want to practice feeling what it feels like to have the weight shift from toe to heel and heel to toe, just while standing still, which leads us to the next part of the progression, which is having your weight rocker from heel to toe. So this is a little bit what I was talking about here with Matthews, where the weight is cutting from toe to heel and heel to toe. And so he's using the rocker of his skate to actually drive his movement. And if you're using the rocker of your skate to drive your movement, your hips loosen up, which we'll talk about in a second, and your shoulders and hands and everything loosens up. So what you can see out of this repetition here is I'm purposely aiming to rocker my weight from toe to heel. So you can see the weight of the skate is on the heel there, and then you can see that there as well. The weight is purposely pushed to the heel. And so this is your next progression, is you want to practice rockering your weight from toe to heel. And what you'll find is that this will force you to get into rhythm, and it'll also loosen up your hips. So practice the rocker from heel to toe standing, and then the rocker from heel to toe and toe to heel while doing the corkscrew. This next progression is one you can do on dry land off ice. It's one that I actually really recommend. You can put your hands on your hips, or you can put your stick on your hips. The whole idea with this progression is to get your hips rotating and get your hips moving. There's a concept called the hip headlights. So as you can see here, my hips are turned to my left, to the screen's right. And what this is you can imagine if you had the hip headlights would be facing this way, right, where the arrows are pointing. Now, if I turn it back, you can see how the hip headlights face the other way. So this is called rotating your hips, and you can actually use either, like I said, a stick or your hands on your hips to kind of indicate which way your hips are facing. And this starts to get you feeling more loose through the hips. And the reason for that is because when we're doing the corkscrew, you have two choices. You can either keep your hips completely locked and your hip headlights facing forward while you push with your legs, right? And we'll show you that in a second. Or you can actually rotate your hips to move. So if we go back to Eichel and Matthews, they're actually using really subtle hip rotation. And so right here, you can see the hips start to rotate this way, and then you can see them start to rotate back. And unless they're moving their hips, unless their hips are actually moving, they don't have that looseness, that relaxation needed to connect movements together. So this is stick handling while rotating the hip headlights. So you can actually see hip headlights facing this way. And then as we progress here and go the other way, you can see hip headlights facing the other way. So we're going to now show the progression on the corkscrew without the hips moving. So this is just your hips facing forward, hip headlights facing forward, and cutting with the foot. So there's no rotation in the hips. So you can start here just to feel what that's like. Now you can notice here the change from hips facing forward. You can actually see it really clearly, hips facing forward. Now you'll start to notice here comes the hips rotating from this way to this way. So notice how the hips turn. The other thing you might notice is that when the hips start to turn, I start picking up a lot more speed with a lot less effort. So there, all of a sudden, start picking up speed. So when it comes to the corkscrew, those are the different progressions to walk through. And this is the repetition or the exercise that you want to get lots of repetitions on. This right here. So you're looking for a couple things, super deep Y angle so the toe cap is almost touching, weight to the heel, rocking your weight from toe to heel, heel to toe, twisting your hips side to side with a nice double shoulder width. And let's take one final look at this in NHL actual gameplay. So there's Matthews there, here's Eichel here. And so as I mentioned, this is a common linking mechanic. This is a really critical mechanic to learn first, because in learning it first, you can link together so many other mechanics and you start to get super loose and you start to have a lot of different options. So that is the corkscrew, and those are your progressions. And if you're ever having any trouble with those, work backwards in the progressions. And this is a super simple mechanic to learn, but it's an untaught one, and one that will totally transform your game and provide you tons of options if you're not already using it. Have fun, and thanks for watching. Hey, thanks for watching this free downhill skating system 4 lesson. And if you'd like to see the full unified system, the full downhill skating system 4 that will transform your mechanics and really unlock the next level of your game, all working together as a system. So all the lessons are linked up and you get the full picture, really leaving no stone left unturned, then I'd love for you to join the Train 2.0 Plus membership, where you'll get access to Downhill Skating System 4 and you'll get access to all the videos and everything unlocked. You also get access to the community and our private Facebook group, where we're constantly sharing and connecting with other downhill skating system players. So if that's something you want to do, I invite you to start your either your free trial or your first month with Downhill Skating System. So click the link to join, and I'd love to see what kind of progress you can make with the full unlock system.